The 6 hidden costs when you buy a property. Now, it's not just the price of a house you've got to think about when you go and purchase investment property. There are 6 hidden costs that everyone forgets about. So in today's video, we're going to go through those 6 hidden costs and then make sure you stick around to the end because we're going to add them all up so you know how much to budget. Now, we're going to primarily focus on property investors today because they have many extra costs that first home buyers and owner-occupiers don't. But this video will still apply to you if you are a first home buyer or you're thinking about purchasing your next house. Number 1, your lawyer. Budget somewhere between $2,300 up to $4,000 for this. Now, for that, your lawyer is going to check over the contract, they're going to negotiate on your behalf in consultation with you, and then they're going to legally transfer that property into your name, what's called conveyancing. Now, they're often going to do much more than this as well, like check the council documents, check the legal docs of the property, look out for any nasties so you know what you are purchasing. Now, what's the cost of not using a good lawyer? Well, you could buy something you don't fully understand, and you could agree to things that come back to bite you later. Number 2 is your valuation. Budget somewhere between $800 up to $1,200 for this. Now you might think, well, why do I need a valuer? I don't care about the value of the property, I care about what price I'm paying. Often it's because the bank says so. So sometimes the banks won't lend you money without a valuation, especially for a new build. So they might say something like, yep, we'll lend you the money, but you've got to get a valuation first, and you need to use one of our valuers. So a wee word of warning, don't try and organize the valuation yourself. You need to go through and use the bank's process. So don't Google Valuers Auckland or Valuers Wellington. The bank will send you a link. You go through, you pop your credit card details in, they'll organize it for you. If you try and do it yourself, they won't accept it. Number 3, and this is the one everyone forgets, flights and accommodation. Budget somewhere between $0 up to $1,200 for this, depending on whether you decide to do it or not. Now you might think, why do I need flights and accommodation for purchasing a property? Well, let's say you live in Auckland and you're buying an investment property down in Christchurch. Well, you might like to fly down there, perhaps stay the night, to look at the property you're buying. You might even fly down for the pre-settlement inspection as well. Now, this isn't compulsory, but many first-time property investors will do this, especially if investing outside the city they live in. Now, let's say you're more experienced, you've got a portfolio already, or you're working with a company like Opus. Well, you might decide to skip this. Number 4, and listen up, because this one is very important. Don't skip this. Number 4 is the chattel valuation. Budget $500 for this. Now, if you're a first-time property investor, you might ask, well, what is a chattel valuation? Well, this is where somebody will come into the property and they're going to value everything in the house that isn't bolted down. That's what's called chattels. So I'm talking about retaining walls, decks, fences, even the driveway, appliances, curtains, whole heap of other things. They're going to put a value on all of this. They're then going to give you a depreciation schedule, which you're going to hand to your accountant, and they are going to use that to save you on tax. It's all about saving tax. Now, what if you don't use a chattel valuer? You are very likely to pay more tax over the lifetime. How much? Well, you might spend $500 for the chattel valuer. That could save you up to $15,000 in tax over the lifetime of the investment. Number 5 is your accounting. This will cost, for setting it up, somewhere between $0 up to $2,300. Now, they are going to tell you the best way to buy that property. Is it a trust? Is it a look-through company? Is it a closed company? Is it in your own name? And then if you need a trust or a look-through company, something like that, they'll set that up for you. Now, usually the first part of this, the advice side, is free. But then if you need to have a trust or a look-through company set up, that's the part that's going to cost you money. Now, if you don't use a good accountant, you are likely to pay more in tax than you need to. Number 6 is your building inspection. Budget $700 up to $1,000 for this. And that's where somebody will come in and look at the property from every angle, tell you everything that's potentially wrong with that property. And if you don't use a good building inspector, you could buy a property that has something wrong with it. Now, I told you there were 6 hidden costs, but I want to give you a bonus one. Non-bank lender fees. This is going to be somewhere between $0 up to $1,500 or more. And that's because if you work with a non-bank lender, there will sometimes be an establishment fee. So for example, Pepper Money, a non-bank lender in New Zealand, charges a $1,500 establishment fee when you take out a loan from them. Now, if you go through a main bank, ANZ, ASB, Westpac, BNZ, you're not going to pay this. But since non-bank lenders are becoming more popular in New Zealand, this is something you need to be aware of. Now that we know all of those hidden costs, let's add them up. But just before we do that, if you enjoyed this video and want to become a more successful property investor, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on our future videos and get notified about them. We release at least 2 videos a week every Monday and Wednesday, so make sure you hit subscribe. Let's add up those hidden costs. If you are doing things on the cheaper end, you don't need a trust set up, you don't need to go and get more accounting advice, and you're not using a non-bank lender, it could be as low as $4,300. This is a very common and realistic amount to budget for. But if you are on the higher end, you are going to get the flights and accommodation, you're going to use a more expensive lawyer, you're going to get a trust set up, and you're going to use a non-bank lender, it could even be as high as 11.7K. Now, that is definitely on the high side, and there's not that many people who are going to be spending just under 12K on this. Most people are going to be at the lower end, but I just want to show you the range of what those setup fees could cost. And if you want to be a more successful property investor in today's market, you've got to check out this video, How to Win at Any Part of the Property Cycle.